This is the Wiim Amp Pro. Everybody loves it. It comes in at $379. It's a huge deal, but today I'm gonna tell you 5 reasons why I don't think you should buy it. I know, crazy, right? So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about 5 reasons not to buy the Wiim Amp Pro. Now, before anybody freaks out and thinks I'm just scooping manure on Wiim, don't, because I love Wiim. I like these Wiim amps. I like the Wiim Amp Pro. I just personally wouldn't buy it. I think there are better options out there, and that would include the Wiim Amp, the regular one, but more importantly, and more specifically, and how this video is really gonna go, is I would buy the Wiim Ultra instead, and then add stuff to it. The first reason why I wouldn't buy the Wiim Amp Pro, it is actually pretty heavy. That was heavier than the Wiim Amp, maybe a little bit. The Wiim Amp Pro is coming in at $379. Really, one of the only differences between the Wiim Amp and the Wiim Amp Pro is the Wiim Amp Pro uses the same 3255 chipset from Texas Instruments, but it has the post-filter feedback technology, which gives you better output impedances, I don't know, to spread out the power better so you have better power distribution on all the frequencies? Maybe? I don't know. Ironically though, the Wiim Amp Pro loses the AirPlay ability. Wiim Ultra also doesn't have AirPlay options, but the regular Wiim Amp comes in at $299, which is $80 less. And the previous generation Wiim Amp regularly goes on sale down to $260. Quite a bit of savings when it comes to the Wiim Amp Pro. And with the Wiim Ultra coming in at $330, but also going on sale all the way down to $260, that makes spending $380 on the Wiim Amp Pro a little bit prohibitive if you're on a super tight budget. The Wiim Amp Pro kind of positions itself as an all-in-one super convenient amplifier that can bring in your television, can bring in an analog input in a very convenient, small, attractive package. But there's a few things missing on the back, one of which is no Phono Stage, which means if you're gonna hook a turntable up to this, it's got to have its own pre-installed Phono Stage, or you have to use an outboard Phono Stage because you do have one set of single-ended RCA analog inputs right there. However, you only have one set, which means if you're using that for an outboard Phono Stage, you're not gonna have an option for another analog input. That may not be a big deal to you at all. Maybe you only need one analog input. Maybe you don't need any analog inputs. But the Wiim Ultra on the back does have a Phono Stage, and it has another set of analog inputs. So even if you're using the onboard Phono Stage on the Wiim Ultra, you still have an option for another analog input. No digital outputs. The DAC inside of the Wiim Amp Pro is a Sabre 9038. The DAC inside the Wiim Ultra is a Sabre 9038. Good DAC, fine DAC, great DAC, but you're sharing a power supply with the amplifier in the Wiim Amp Pro. You've also got your DAC right next to everything, so there could be some issues with interference. Is there? Listen, the Wiim Amp Pro sounds good, but if you don't like that 9038 DAC inside, you're not going to be able to get a digital output from here and put it into a different DAC because you only have an optical input into here, which means if you had a DVD player or a CD player that you're using as a transport and run everything through your Wiim Amp Pro. But the Wiim Ultra has a digital output, has two digital outputs, has a digital coaxial output and a digital optical output, and an optical input, and a dual function USB right here, which can be used as a USB output. So you can hook up an external reclocker to the Wiim Ultra and get even better sound. Power. 60 watts into 8 ohms, 120 watts into 4 ohms. On paper, that sounds like plenty of power, and in most situations with most speakers in most rooms, it's going to be enough power for most people. However, if you don't like the sound of the amplifier, you can't do anything with it because you get what you get right inside here. It also doesn't have an option to change the power supply. On a lot of affordable Class D amplifiers using the same chipset, this is the Fuzzy Audio ZA3, you have the options for different power supplies. So if you want a 48 volt 10 amp, 48 volt 5 amp, 48 volt whatever, 32 volt, whatever it is, you get it. You can buy whatever power supply you want. And a lot of these amplifiers, like the Fuzzy Audio ZA3, like the Fuzzy Audio V3, like the IEMA A07 Max, like the IEMA A70, which also has the PFFB technology, you can change out op amps. You can bridge these and make these into a mono amplifier, which gives you even more power. Now, once you start buying all these, the value proposition starts to go out the window because it's going to cost you more to buy even one of these with a Wiim Ultra, let alone two of these with a Wiim Ultra. But you have that option. If you buy the Wiim Amp Pro, you do not have that option. Like I said, most times the Wiim Amp Pro will be just fine, but if you want more power, you need to go with a Wiim Ultra and buy your own outboard amplifier. Versatility. I've kind of been alluding to it this entire video. The Wiim Amp Pro just isn't versatile. One of the criticisms I've always had of the Wiim Amp and the Wiim Amp Pro is that it doesn't have preamp outputs. If it had preamp outputs, I probably wouldn't be making this video because there really wouldn't be a reason not to buy the Wiim Amp or the Wiim Amp Pro, because you could buy it, you could have it, you could hook up your speakers, and then if you wanted to get a different amplifier later, you could, because you'd have preamp outputs. If you had a digital output, then you could still use the Wiim Amp or the Wiim Amp Pro as just a streamer, and then you could bring it out and use your own DAC. And the Wiim Amp Pro doesn't have AirPlay. Not that I use that a lot, but I know that for some people that's a deal breaker. Now the Wiim Ultra doesn't have AirPlay either, but the Wiim Amp does. The only reason that I can see for buying the Wiim Amp or the Wiim Amp Pro is purely convenience. If you just want one box. And if you just want one box, you might as well save a little bit of money and just get the regular Wiim Amp, or wait till the Wiim Amp goes on sale and save even more money. I love Wiim as a company, but I really feel like you're kind of painting yourself into a corner with the Wiim Amp Pro because you can't really do anything with it if you outgrow it. Now, if you're just putting this into a secondary room, or you're using this outside on your porch with your outdoor television or something like that, it makes complete and total sense. But if you're into this and you want to incrementally improve your system, this is not the product for you. It's still an outstanding value. However, because the Wiim Ultra exists with so many more options, I just don't see a reason to buy the Wiim Amp Pro. Even with something like a Fuzzy Audio TB10D, which is a little 3255 Texas Instruments amp chipset amp that comes in around $60, you're going to be about the same price and you're going to have way more functionality. And if you can save a little bit more, if you can spend maybe $450 for the whole setup, you can get a really good amplifier, like a ZA3, like a Fuzzy Audio, like maybe a pair of V3 monos, like an IEMA A07 Max, and then you can get another IEMA A07 Max. There's just so many different options with the Wiim Ultra. You can start swapping out op amps. So many cool things. If you're after convenience, buy the Wiim Amp. If you're after better sonics, if you're after more power, do not buy the Wiim Amp Pro. I love you, Wiim. Don't get mad at me, please. I just think the Ultra is the way to go. If you like this video, you really need to check out my best amps of 2024. I will stick it right here or right here. I'll also stick the best speakers of 2024. Maybe right here or right here. I don't know. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Share this video out to somebody that is considering getting a Wiim product. We want to make sure that they get the right product. Thank you so much for watching. Have a happy holidays. Love each other a lot.